Hey everyone, welcome back to the Shift Podcast. Once again, another week. This is where inspiration meets leaders, mentors, and the everyday person who wants to inspire people out there. This is a show where we bring on guests who will bring their insight, their wisdom, the practical ways of helping you become the best that you can be and how you can create your own shift. So this week, it's a friend, it's a brother of mine. I've known him for more than 10 years. You know, this guy's just been so instrumental in my life, and we, on a weekly basis, we share these things that we're gonna share today. And he's a business owner and so many other things. So without further ado, this is my guy, Dustin. Welcome to the show.
What up, man? You all right?
Yeah, good, man. Good. Like, you know, our signature question on the show is, what does the shift mean to you? What does that look like?
Right, shift as in transitions in life, things like that?
Things like that, yeah.
What does it mean to me? Looking back now, I would say it's kind of been crucial in so many ways. Just thinking about growing up. Very little stability, very little resources, no food, sometimes just no money, no electricity, sometimes no running water. So even at a young age, the big thing was how do I get out of this? You know what I mean? Which was a shift.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? At the time, I wouldn't have had language for that.
Yeah.
But even from a very young age to whenever the next step was whatever I was in life, there was just always something about how do I get here? Right, I'm here. How do I get here?
Yeah.
I would say in the last maybe 15 years, I would say I've been more conscious of that. Of shifts. But before, it was crucial for me, whether I was aware of it or not. But my mind kind of always went to, if I don't like the situation I'm in, how do I shift out of it? So
that's good, man. Which we'll get more into how, the gist of it, how that shift's happened, and we'll go back. But just for people who don't know you, give us a little bit of background of who you are, what is it that you're doing currently, and then we'll go back. And I know that there's so much to cover, and I know that people will be inspired by that.
Yeah, so as you can tell from my accent, from America, not Canada, but America, born in Texas, born there. Couldn't tell you a lot about it. Grew up in Florida, lived in Florida, Ohio, New York City, my adult life. And I think the theme pretty much was low income housing, sometimes no housing at all, just kind of roaming the streets, homeless. So kind of just without, and so, we can go back to whatever you want to pick up on. But I guess now everything is about kind of owning my own time, owning my schedule, being in control of the things maybe when I was younger I had no control over, and spending time with my family. So I own a few businesses, and so I have one which is Your Business Solutions, wraparound service for small to medium businesses, providing basically a wraparound service, everything you would want, from starting up or relaunching your websites, your content, your filming, photography, your online stores, your Google presence, whatever it is, SEO. Then I got a local kind of cozy community coffee shop by the university in Swansea. And so we have that. So my wife is there day to day. I just kind of oversee the business side of things. And then I got this new thing, which I've been talking to you about, which is cool. And it's like a startup of a community interest company, which is outdoor learning activities, basically for young adults, anywhere from 16 to 24, schools, when like teachers don't, they struggling to engage students, could be the NHS with people that are just struggling with their well-being, training providers, people that are looking to get young adults into the workplace. They need to get skilled up. So we do all that sort of stuff, but from basically a farm. Okay. So we have animal care, woodland management, allotment management, so growing all your food stuff, horses, so how to deal, with horses, grooming, could get into some horse riding, things like that, cows, pigs, all that stuff that I didn't grow up with, but it's cool, as a full, grown adult going there. And it's just in a really cool setting. I have to take you there, but it's just an amazing setting. It just goes on forever. Just the tour is about an hour. And it just has, so much different things, Highland cattle. And so we take, young adults there and give them projects to do. So that's a new thing. And I'm excited. So this coming up week is a pretty big week for us to try to close some of the leads that we've got. So that's what I do, as well as coach a bit of football, which we've coached the same team before, my son's team, but now we've transferred to a different team. We've got a final coming up. Come on. So that's cool. Who would have thought? Ted Lasso, 2.0 over here. And I just, like to create good memories with my family. Which Yeah, man, that's really good. Before we go back into, your first hustle and you're remembering your first job, for me, it's like, 12 years ago when I met you, your values is just crazy. Like every week, we have these opportunities of inputting and encouraging and inspiring one another. And I just want to say to people out there as well, like, Dustin helped me with my website. When was that? It was in COVID, right? In COVID time, I started Paradigm Shift Academy coaching and mentoring. And you did the website, you did the pictures, took the pictures as well. And it is your business solutions. If you guys if there's any problems, they'll solve it for you. They'll solve it for you. And it's not just solving it, but it's coming alongside to help you become the best that you can be. What would you say, what was your first hustle? Do you remember your first hustle, your first job? Yeah, unfortunately I do. 12 years old, I was in school, and this is in Florida. And so in Florida is kind of a port for imports that are illegal. So I'm sitting there in lunch, and this kid next to me has like this kind of button-up shirt, short sleeve. It's Florida, so it's hot. Has a pocket, and so he kind of realizes he has something he shouldn't have had, And so he's like, "Oh, I got this," and it's Florida, so it's everywhere. And so he's like, "Oh, do you want it?" I'd never really been around it like that to have it in my own possession. I mean, it was drugs, and drugs were all around me growing up. But that was the first time I had it. And so that was the first hustle I had was at a young age.
12 years old.
12 years old. And then, I unfortunately dabbled in that sort of stuff for I would say until I was maybe 15, other stuff that wasn't very good, but it really was. It's not an excuse, but it was really desperate. We didn't have food and stuff like that. I think the first time when I was 12, I think that's what I did with the money, was we just got food and got something to drink. But so that would have been the first hustle. The hustle, was always kind of nickel and dime sort of stuff, trying to buy juices, fill it with like Kool-Aid or something, try to rebrand it. Which is funny because when I did the coffee shop, when we got the coffee shop started doing that, I think I posted on it, and this kid I know that I ended up living with his family, I had nowhere to go, and so he was just like, "Oh, come live with us." So I was like 16, and I tried to start this drink, sort of ghetto drink sort of thing, and so funny enough, like a year ago he messaged me, and he just kind of put that on there and just started laughing, but it was always like trying to do something which it really comes from probably the no stability sort of thing, but that was the first. Unfortunately, that was the first hustle.
Yeah, give us a little bit of like what it looked like in terms of your the surroundings that you grew up in. What was that like that got you to do that first hustle? Like what, just give us a little bit of what the surroundings looked like, and the upbringing, and how did it shape you to where you are now?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I would say from family life to work life. Yeah, and I think just with me as well, how I carry myself, the upbringing had everything to do with that. And I think when I was younger, like in my early 20s, you know, I started to bleed out where the negatives of those things were coming from, a lot of trauma. But the things that were around me, I mean, it was a lot of poverty. Embarrassment was a big thing, you know. You know, I thought at one point we lived in Florida in this it was like the most ghetto area, and it was all low income houses, and there was one sort of trailer, like a caravan for UK people, and we were the only ones. We lived there in this little caravan trailer thing. So it's one thing to be poor, but when you're all poor together, you know what I mean? It's whatever, you know what I mean? But when it's visually, you see it every day of like, you know what I mean? So. And then outside of that as well, there was just a lot of violence, you know, in the household. My dad was around at times, but when he was aggressive, you know, kind of had his own demons. I mean, there were times you're asleep 2, 3 in the morning, then glass breaking, he shows up, he's angry, he's mad. And so, yeah, so anywhere from embarrassment, if you're poverty or, you know, not having certain stuff or what other people have, to the household, you know, go days without food. Yeah, you know, no running water. It's different here in the UK than in the States. So in the States, if you can't pay your water, you can't pay your electricity, it's off. That's it.
Yeah,
you know, there's
South Africa as well.
Yeah, nobody's coming to help, you know. And so you start to see really what those things are all connected to, you know. The toilet starts to stink because there's no water, you can't flush, you know, and it's hot. So yeah, you can't keep anything in the fridge. So that was the surroundings. And when you get outside the house, you know, we you know, there was a lot of aggression, a lot of people in those sort of environments, neighborhoods, you know, within the family, everybody's mad.
Yeah.
So people want to take out their frustration. So things like that, you know. I mean, to the extent of, I don't know how graphic you want to get, but, you know, I saw my brother stabbed, you know, and you know, kind of a fight broke out in front of my house. You know, we've been shot at, you know. You know, it is a very, you know, we've lived in communities that were just, you know, police aren't really coming around unless it's really bad. So the upbringing really was watching over your shoulder. You grow up really quick, you know. So that basically was, you know, kind of the kind of a pressure cooker, you know what I mean? Yeah.
And who were like, was your role models at that time? Who were the people that you could look up to?
At that time, I mean, I don't know if this is where, you know, you'd want to take this, but if I'm being honest, you know, there were people like Tupac, you know, because he was one of the only, everybody was braggadocious in hip hop. So our community it was all black and brown. So it was very hip hop oriented, and I didn't speak Spanish. So a lot of the brown people in the community, they all spoke Spanish, and we could understand a bit, but it was a lot of hip hop, and everybody who was coming from environments we were coming from, they talked about, you know, having new cars, the jewelry, everything was just bragging. And I'm sure there were other artists, but with Tupac, when he had stuff like Dear Mama, you know, Keep Your Head Up, those were things I could relate to. You know what I mean? Obviously, there were other, you know, things he would say that I wouldn't agree with as an adult, but there were things I think I would look to for, you know, I guess maybe comfort, you know, of just, you know, it's not just me, it's not just my household, you know. You know, I guess even going to the whole Biggie, you know, line of, you know, about Christmas, missed us, you know what I mean? Mama making miracles every Thanksgiving, you know, Tupac, you know, Dear Mama lyric. It was stuff like that. Like we really lived that, where Christmas, it was just a regular day. You wouldn't get anything. You know what I mean? Like those holidays meant nothing, really. So, you know, there were people like that. I think in my early age, it really was. It would have been street people. There was a couple odd local people. A guy named TC at this rec center we played basketball in. You know, he took time to really kind of look out for us. Bought us some food, you know, things like that. Try to give us advice when we were acting like knuckleheads.
Yeah, so that would be the mentor then.
It was almost like indirectly. He was there, but there were a lot of us there, but he was the adult figure that was trying to guide us. But I would say, if I'm honest, if you're asking for who was the person who was trying to give me guidance and stuff, there really wasn't. Everybody who was giving guidance, it was all bad stuff. The value system was just upside down. It was be as aggressive as you can be as cutthroat as you can be, no emotions, no remorse. You know, unfortunately, in environments like that, no matter where you live, you know what I mean? I think it's just where poverty's at. And if there's a lot of people, dense area, I think you tend to have, you tend to have value systems kind of upside down. So at that point in my life, you know, I think I was up to probably maybe 16. We moved around a bit, you know, but it always tend to be the same sort of thing because you're poor. I can go to Cape Town if my skill level and my situation is, and I go there, it doesn't matter. I still might end up, you know what I mean, in the same sort of situation. It just looks different, sounds different, you know what I mean? But it's still a very similar values.
What are some of your values that you would say, you know, like, because I've got to know you for, like, again, more than 10 years. What are your values? Because hearing that story, it's like, how did he get out? How did he shift? What happened there for you? What's your values? Or what was that kind of thing that says, I just got to get out? What happened for you there?
I would say it was accidental. Maybe it's not. I think how the shift is, being the youngest of four, you know, you see everybody, you know, beforehand. You see how things are. Even in my big family, whether it was in Florida, Ohio, Texas, whatever, I was still towards the bottom in age. You know, there was a few younger, but I was always, I was younger. So I seen as we all grew up, I seen what things that were going bad. Like I had like a distant cousin, got 24 years, he's in prison. You know, he just got out. You see stuff like that. You see where some of my cousins have kids super young, and they're unstable. So they're in America, if you can't pay child support, you just end up going to jail. And then you're just stuck in this loop, this system, where you're just constantly going in and out. So I just started seeing how things were, you know, drug dealers, you know, sometimes you don't live that long to see how you're going to spend your money, or, you know, you're going to get busted at some point, you know, and everybody will snitch, you know. So I think I got to see everything that was happening, and so I just thought I just don't want to live this way. You know, when you're younger, you might see some of the older people, like my uncles and older people around the neighborhood, and you might think they're cool or whatever, but as you get a little bit older and you see them get older, it's no longer cool. You know what I mean? In the community, they end up being like bums and stuff. And so I just, as I saw that, I don't know what it was, but I just thought I didn't want to live like that, you know, and I wanted my situation to change. So I think, you know, the shifts and the transitions and the things like that, I think I just really tried to expose myself to different things. I think that's always been a big thing for me. And it's a value of mine now, you know, worked with young people closely for 20 years, you know, and a big thing for me is just showing young people, you know, I can lecture them all day, every day, recommend books, podcasts, whatever, you know what I mean? But you know, you can do a lot of good by exposing young people to something. And if they feel inspired or they see something they like, you know, it might make it easier to try to show them how they can get there and live that sort of life, where I think, some of those things, you know, I think they were kind of accidental, just started getting around different types of people, and it just started getting exposed to different things. The way family should function was a big one, and that was weird for me.
Yeah.
And, you know, just seeing people around a dinner table eating, and to just seeing people just function different, and going out for food. You know, little things now, you know, that we would probably do all the time.
Yeah.
But when you're without those things, you're just like, you know, and my thinking, I didn't have the thoughts of, you know, that's for them, you know, not for me.
Okay.
I was just more of like, I want to get that. I want to do that.
Exactly, because that was my next thing was going to be like, you know, seeing that environment. It's like, did you feel like there's got to be more out there? What, like, based on what you're just saying there, is like, sometimes we could be like, this is the situation, this is the environment, and so we just go with it.
Yeah.
But it sounds like that resilience in you, that there is, I could also have that. That's fire. I mean, from a teenager, having that mentality. I mean, now which we're gonna get to how things are now. We'll end off with how things are now. But I want people to capture the whole thing of that shifts. You can actually see those shifts. I also felt like that. You know, when I was younger, growing up, I felt like I'm gonna travel the world. But I couldn't verbalize that.
Yeah.
Because the environment is like, my friend said that. He said it too, but now he's become a gangster. Or like, so many people said that they want to, but didn't have that resilience or that fight to believe that I'm going to get there too.
Yeah.
And it just sounds to me like that kind of, did you make a vow to yourself that things are going to change for you as you were journeying in life?
I would say about 15. Maybe I was 15. I was already just done with street stuff. I was already done. And I think I was just looking for something to get into, you know, and by 16, I was trying to get off, you know, bad habits that I was on, you know, nothing crazy, but just things that were to pass the time, and, you know, drinking, smoking, stuff like that. And I was just trying to do things different. And I think everything up to probably, I was probably 19, 18 years old was accidental, I would say. I guess, let's just say accidental, you know, maybe just good decisions. Maybe it was just, I was just trying to find stability and not do what everybody else was doing. But I wasn't conscious of, you know, like there was a game plan, you know, from a certain age trying to do that.
It's weird because you, by like naturally now, you're different in terms of like.
Yeah. I have language now. I have like that. Yeah. So, but by 18, 19, I was interning at a place, and I did it for like 2 years. And up to that point.
In Brooklyn?
No. This was in Ohio. At this point now, I was in Ohio, and so, I ended up interning in this place for 2 years, and I had good experiences in putting myself in positions that I wasn't comfortable with. You know, that was different. You know, and in the States, a place like Ohio, you know, there just is. There's a lot of cultural differences, racial, you know, issues and things like that. But I didn't let it, you know, keep me from trying to put myself in rooms and things like that, you know, and give it a go, you know, even if I failed. So I found myself interning at this place for 2 years, very different than me. Couldn't have been any different. You know, they were farmers, blue-collared, fishermen, you know, and that was the culture of this organization and the people involved. And so the guy was a mentor of mine, and he talked a lot about values, and everything was intentional. Everything was about, like, he talked about like family, he talked about marriage, you know, like nothing was accidental for the guy. He was always trying to set people up with, you know, don't just get married and think love's going to carry you through, like, you know, and he talked about all of these, and that was a big thing for me, and maybe that's how I am now. He made things practical, and maybe that's what I needed was the practical steps of how do I do that, and he was really good with practical steps when it came to leadership. You know, I think all I've ever known before was bad leadership. Like I said, who were your mentors growing up? Everybody would have been like poor leaders, you know, where I got across, you know, was being mentored by a guy, and he Yeah, everything was like on leadership, personal growth. He was giving me books, good books, and I wasn't really a reader, at that time. Now, I love reading, or we used to spend lots of money on books, but there was stuff on, your Maxwell's. He gave me a lot of business books, and this had nothing to do with business, but it was like some Jim Collins, Built to Last, Good to Great, loads of different books. One of them, he recommended to me when I was in Brooklyn, that I had my son recently read, which was Who Moved My Cheese. So if you haven't read that, that's a good little book, Who Moved My Cheese. But yeah, so he was crucial for me. Wow. And I haven't talked to him in a long time, just because I'm over here, he's over there. So much life has kind of gone on since then. But he made a huge impact because he made me think practically. I got to see him do a lot of, when you're interning there, we're there every day, seeing him not just have this big stage and this big presence and have all this employees, but I got to see him, next to me, fixing these holes and these screws that are stripped and filling them with little pencil shaving, just little things like that, where I'm like, gosh, this guy's just full of all of these. He's well-rounded. I think that was a big thing. Yeah. So those were things I kind of aspired to be, so, and for him to be so big, he never hid himself in his office, he wasn't like this character where it's just me, Moses, biblical reference, where he's up in the mountains and he, only he can come down and, nobody talk to him because he's the leader, he needs his headspace. This guy wasn't that way, he was just, even when we did stupid stuff, we would do things and lose our only day off. We had one day off and we would just do silly stuff, and he would laugh, he was very, just relatable and things like that. So he made me, I guess this is a long, winded answer, but he made me those sort of things. He made me become intentional, have a value system of he was very honest. If he didn't know, he was going to tell you he didn't know. You know what I mean? And I appreciated that. Wow, you know what I mean?
So something shifted there for you then, because, I'm writing this book.
Yeah.
Becoming the mentors the next generation needs. Just by what you're describing, that guy is so fascinating because he had to see where you are, not taking himself too seriously about this kind of hierarchy kind of thing. How important is mentors, particularly, you were talking about working on a farm and intern, and it's kind of weird because now you have now you have a business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like this whole full circle thing, like where you on a farm helping out, this guy comes along, now you with this new business, having the same thing, empowering and inspiring the next generation. How important, like in terms of leadership, what is your leadership principles?
Gosh, what's even crazy is he transitioned when he was going to retire from that organization. He set up a coffee shop, a really good coffee shop. So crazy. Yeah. It's like I'm trying to subconsciously chase this guy's life. But he was just that amazing of a person. He still is. He's not dead.
That's
crazy.
It's
crazy. Yeah. I didn't even think about it to just now.
Because when you said it, I was just thinking about, because I was trying to figure out, where did it shift for you, and where did the value system comes in from Tupac and your Biggie, to guys running the streets? It's like, where was that pivotal moment? And it's just there. As soon as you shared that, I was like, wow, something just shifted there, because he knew that it just sounds like by nature, he's just that person.
Yeah, I think there's emotional intelligence, because all this stuff I'm sharing now, I didn't share forever. Like I didn't share. Like I was embarrassed by all that stuff. So when I was interning there, people had money, people had normal things, you know what I mean? And I was uncomfortable. I was good in one-on-ones, I was good in circles outside, in neutral spaces, but when I was in people's homes, I was uncomfortable. You know what I mean? So all these things, it wasn't probably till a couple years ago I actually wrote like this long sort of writing thing. There was more for me, for like almost therapeutic, and I sent it to certain people that kind of made an impact in my life, at a pivotal point, or was just patient with me, I mean, started going to church at 16. I'm in the parking lot, 3 weeks into it, trying to fight this grown man, taking off my shirt and stuff, like just such bad habits, you know what I mean? Wow. Like it was so, yeah. And so there were so many people that were just patient with me, saw the best in me, but I wasn't sharing this sort of stuff. You know what I mean? Like I could have just been a punk who, just couldn't control his temper, which we would know a bunch of people like that, or just immature. But for him, I think he saw I wasn't like all braggadocious. I wasn't trying to get in line. I wasn't the only one interning. There was like, there might have been 9 of us. Yeah. And there were some really competitive people in there, trying to do stuff, stand out. And I wasn't that way. But there were genuine moments. So when I had a question or there were certain things, I would go to him and just kind of ask, But yeah, I think for him, when you talk about mentorship, and I think that is a big thing for mentors is some people might not want to share where they're coming from. You might ask, and they might not give you everything. And I wasn't ready till my 20s, really, and even then, I think I shared something once, and I realized I wasn't ready to, you know what I mean? Because all the emotions started rising to the surface, and I was like, I'm not ready, So it really wasn't in my 30s. But I think for looking back at guys like him, different people opening up their homes to me, I think when you're mentoring, I think having emotional intelligence, you know what I mean? Having patience with people, like a guy like him who's just full of knowledge, full of wisdom, to have the humility to not to feel like he's figured out all your problems, you know what I mean? Within a half hour or in a year, you know what I mean?
Wow. Man, because your story is so fascinating, man, it's like, again, we do this on a weekly basis, journeying with you. And I wanted people to kind of like capture, doesn't matter where you come from, isn't it? Like, doesn't matter where you come from. I mean, both of us connected because you're from the States, I'm from South Africa, coming here, we connected. And it's just that kind of resilience. I mean, you're a very resilient guy, a very loyal guy. And I've seen that in your family, like how you're a family man, your kids, your wife. You guys are so close-knitted family that if I didn't know this story, I would have said that you must have come from a good upbringing. You must have seen
the amount of people I've met, that would thought stuff like that.
Yes, exactly. I thought that as well because how you've journeyed with me for all these years and we encouraging each other and bringing the best out of each other. I thought that. I was like, man, I want to meet Dad. I want to meet your mom and all of this. And it's like, man, this guy had to fight resilience. And then also it's like your mindset is so like forward thinking, creating new things as you're journeying. I remember when we did a gig together, helping young people, Alive, gigs, and you would just come up with so much creative ideas, where for me, I would wait till something fail before I then now start something new. Where your kind of mindset is like, when it's good, then you kind of step up. That kind of freaked me out at times.
I remember that. It
freaked me out, but it's like I've learned from you that this progressive. Both of us got made redundant, don't want to go into that, but it's like both of us were down and out. But your kind of understanding of knowing where you want to go, your business solutions, the coffee shop, the community interest company that's there now, that has really helped me. That has really helped me to be like, man, I can make it too. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like they were saying like this kind of saying about one beggar telling the other beggar where the bread is. Do you know what I mean? And so with you, you've got that kind of skill, or that kind of the temperament that you have is, I'm going to hustle and I'm going to come out of this. Where for me, by nature, I wouldn't think like that. It's crazy, like how you've inspired me to be progressive, like, hey, what is it you want? And maybe turning 40, you know, when you come past the 40 threshold, everything for me now is legacy. What's it like for you?
The same, I would say. Legacy, I think, I think, what do you mean, what's like for me? Specifically, like turning 40?
Like with the businesses, like I was saying about, you know, starting up these things that you have now, is just that resilient kind of mindset, you know. And what I've learned from you is man, I can get back up again, you know. And so, like, where did that stem from, you know, for you? Is like the resilience,
right?
And it's also like the legacy. What would the legacy look like for you in the future? Yeah,
so the resilience, it's not natural, you know. For me, it wasn't my nature. I think it was more the nurturing of being in the situation that I was in, you know, growing up, where I think you have to be resilient, you know. But I got family members, like my brother, he's my oldest brother. He would have been my hero, you know, at one point. And you know, we went through the same stuff up until we kind of all left the house at young teenage years. He's 4 years older than me. And, you know, it goes to show the nature thing where he was done, you know, at a young age. He was just like, whatever, you know, that's not for people like me. And not much has changed since he was like 16 to now, you know, in his 40s. You know, and so for me, I think I kind of always had hope. And I think the resilience is kind of in that, where I thought this situation sucks bad. Like I haven't eaten in 3 days, you know, or I'm outside of, you know, someone's house, in the back of their house, just sitting there waiting for the sun to come up, because there's curfew in the States, in certain states. And so it was 10 o'clock and I had nowhere to go, and I didn't want to get caught by the cops because there was nowhere for the cops to take me. If they did, I'm in the system. I'd be like foster care or something, and I didn't want to. You know, so all of those moments, I was always, even though I'd be mad, you know, I'd be upset, or I'd feel alone, sad, but there was always hope of, you know, because sometimes when you're down, you know what I mean? Like, you could feel like, you know, there's nowhere else to go, you know, so might as well just hope, you know what I mean? That's free. You know what I mean? Like, I might not have all these things, but at least I can hope. Nobody can control that. And so I think my resilience really is in that. I'm always hoping for something better, something different. I love adventures, so I you know, I know a lot of people who grew up like me, and nothing is different. It's the same sort of adventures they're going after and stuff, and I just love being exposed to new things, you know what I mean? Surfing, I don't, you know, what do I know about surfing? But when I moved here, you were getting
that. I've seen that.
Yeah, when I moved here, you moved to Swansea, is, you know, 50 miles of coast, you know, like might as well go in there and do that, get a wetsuit, get a board, you know, jump on, but loads of different things like that. I learned guitar at 17, you know, and it's, I love it. I mean, like photography, videography, jack of all trades, you know. I tried to do those things, but I think, you know, the resilience really helped. The hope, which kind of fuels the resilience, you know, and helps me and not to be afraid to fail. If I try something and if it doesn't work out, then it didn't work out. You know what I mean? I'm okay with that.
And then
you know what I mean?
Hope then continues again for whatever lies ahead.
Yeah. And maybe I learned something. You know what I mean? Like I don't hit holes in one every time I swing. You know what I mean? Like I don't. Every time I kick a ball, it's not top bins, you know? It's just not how it is, you know? But I think I am not afraid to fail. I don't want to fail, you know? I prepare not to fail. But, you know, I think my resilience really is just, it's just hoping.
Connected
you know what I mean?
Hope,
yeah, because I think resilience can be kind of linked to maybe this, you know, like a hard sort of thing, you know what I mean? Like in sports, you know, like in sports, you know, it's a thing of like, you know, I grew up boxing a bit, you know, and, you know, sometimes resilience of being able to take a punch and being aggressive, angry, swinging hard, you know, and things like that. But I look at my hope as in, it's very kid-like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it very much is. You know, I want to do that. I want to do this. I want to have that. You know, and a lot of it isn't about, you know, like with business and some of the stuff we talk about. You know, it isn't so much of I want more, I need more, I want to be, you know, you know, some billionaire and stuff like that. Not at all. It's more about the ride. It's about the experiences, you know, and it's exposing my kids to cool stuff of what they could do. 100%. You know what I mean? And creating good memories, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, when we're old, all we're going to have is memories, you know, and might as well just create some really cool memories.
Man,
you know?
That's fire, man. So a couple of questions, like zooming out now for long-term impact. What does your life look like now, and how is it different from that early hustle we talked about?
Yeah, so I probably covered some of that stuff. Yeah, so life is very chill. You know what I mean? I mean, it's very different than back then. You know, we're pretty relaxed. We like laughter. You know, we laugh.
Yeah.
We like to, you know, we watch. There's certain values that we have. You know, we don't say shut up. We don't say, even in a joking way. You know, with banter, we don't tell people to shut up. We don't want to. You know, we don't call people dumb. You know what I mean? Like, there's just certain things we have. We want to try to set a tone of just, you know, even if you're not happy with somebody or you're mad or something, you know, you figure something else, what to say, you know, or control your emotions and stuff. So, you know, and in a way, it kind of set a tone for just, just getting over certain things, you know, whenever certain things. I got 2 kids. So it's, you know, life now is my kids, really. You know, it's family. I mean, you know this. It's you know, whatever money we make, you know, it really is making sure that they are not spoiled, but they get opportunities, you know, to go and do things. Coaching football, you know. I mean, it's really relaxed. You know, I would say my life now, it really is, you know, I get up in the morning. I mean, I guess in a scheduled thing, I get up in the morning, I open up the coffee shop every day, Monday to Friday, you know, my first hour in the day, you know, let the dog out, whatever, go do that. I love it. That was a dream of mine, was to have a coffee shop, opening it up, put some music on, get that coffee smell going, and then I head out, I do what I got to do. So whether it's helping businesses grow, do different things, websites, filming, or it's currently now, you know, there's a lot of time at the farm, insurance people, a lot of insurance stuff to cover with animals and tools and stuff. And, you know, it's pretty chill, but that's what I wanted, you know, from as a kid, waking up and, you know, there's this chaos with adults, you know what I mean? Like, there were the amount of fights I saw as a kid, you know, in my household with family members, you know, not my siblings or, you know, but just seeing, you know, now it's really, really chill, you know, so, yeah.
2 more questions. You know, for somebody who's starting a business or launching something new or navigating, you know, uncertainty for those people who are starting up the business, what would your advice be to those people launching something new, or they're in something in this uncertainty? How would you encourage them to kind of like keep going and have that resilience that's connected to hope?
Yeah, specifically when it comes to business, I would say usually if somebody's starting a business, it's because that sector or that line of work is super easy to do. Social media managing now, social media marketers, that's an easy thing to do now. You know what I mean? Like, that field is oversaturated. You know what I mean? There's some really good people, but it's easy to go in there, you know. So that one people could easily get into and not do their homework. So when I say, to answer your question, is do your homework on your skill. You know what I mean? Make sure, hone in, grow in your skill, because some people can get into stuff with all the tech now and all the new stuff. They do enough to get in the door. You know what I mean? And it was something my mentor once said, you know, I'm sure he got it from somebody else, you know, but it was, you know, talent will get you through the door, but your character will keep you in the room.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think, you know, and I guess in a way it's almost like new technology you can get your hands on can get you in the door, but your character, your ability to want to grow as a business person will keep you in the room, will keep those clients with you, you know. But that's what I would say. It's twofold. I would say with your skill, even if you're naturally just gifted at it and good at it, doesn't mean you've achieved everything. You want to continue to grow. Yeah. But the big thing I would say is learn business. Just because you're a good baker, you're a good photographer, you're good at something that gets you into business, doesn't necessarily mean you're a business person. You know, business in itself is just a completely different thing. So that's why, like, for instance, with the coffee shop, my wife works on it day to day. She does rotors, you know, inventory, you know, the stock, all that stuff. She's there, all the staff. You know, I don't do that. I couldn't make you a cup of coffee at all unless it was just black and chuck some milk in there. But for me, I work on the business. You know, it's the marketing. It's, you know, whether we're getting pop-ups to come in the evening, alcohol license, or whether, whatever it is, you know what I mean? Staff, you know, changing up how we do things. All those things, VAT, you know, tax, all those things that I have issues with, you know, because it's one thing to have a business, but once you start making money, you have to figure out how to keep your money. And that's a whole different thing. And I think that's where I see people struggle. So if you're going to get into business, I would say learn about business, everything around your business. Don't just have the tools and think you're a business person because somebody's going to pay you to do something. It's a completely different thing. And I think that's what I kind of fell in love with. Is
good, man. What's one quote, phrase, or piece of wisdom that anchors you that you could give to somebody? Like, what was that quote or that wisdom that anchors you? Yeah,
there'd be quite a bit of them. There'd be a lot, but I think a big one I kind of go back to a lot, and I try to teach young people, and I try to teach my kids. I probably should drop it a lot more, which is an old mentor of mine, not that one, but much later in Brooklyn, would often say, you know, if you want something you never had before, you got to do something you never done before. So going back to everything was kind of accidental, and I didn't realize I was doing that. That gave me language to be more intentional. So all the things I was doing was just trying to run to something that was more secure and stable, or seemed like a better position to be in. It was all accidental. It was all hand to mouth. There was no strategy, no nothing. But hearing that at, like, maybe I was 20, 21, something like that, and it just kind of blew my mind to be like, well, that makes complete sense, you know? Like, those are things I've seen a lot of my family who stuck to everything they knew, you know what I mean? Because it was comfortable. And so just the little saying of, if you want something you never had before, it makes sense. You got to do something you never done before. So those are things I tried to do, you know. Still afraid, as most people would do naturally, you know what I mean? I could be afraid, could be nervous, you know what I mean? But
hope.
Yeah, you gotta hope. You gotta go for it.
Gotta hope, man.
Yeah.
No, thank you so much, D, for coming on. Social media platforms, how can people get connected with you, with your businesses, plural?
Yeah, I would say, if you want to know, just find me. You can go on your social medias and just probably look at following, you know, or followers, and they'll find it. You know, it's either Dustin Rubio is my personal one I tend to use, and everything in my businesses I tend to just kind of share on there. But
I'll put it in the description as well for you guys. But Dustin, thank you so much, bro, for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Real inspiration to me, my brother, big bro, you know, guiding and helping me, you know, to where I am today. So to you and your family, you guys are a blessing to me. And just your story of how I like the resilience, the hope connected with resilience as well. We got to keep doing that, man. Much
I just
love,
thought
bro.
of that as I was talking. You know, it was just like it was sort of a revelation to me.
It was in there.
As I was saying that. You know, some of these answers are long-winded, but it was just, I'm just thinking on the spot. But and it really was. Yeah, it really is.
Exactly, it's in there, and that's the thing that stood out for me as well. So guys, thank you so much for joining another week. You know, thank you for Dustin coming on the show. Now, take the information, take the insight, and create your own shifts. Catch you on the next one. Peace.